Hello, everybody. We'll just give it a few seconds before we get started as people are joining. All right. Good morning or good evening, depending on which time zone you are tuning in from. Welcome to our Zebra Dev Talk today. We are excited for you to join us for this discussion about Streaming Workstation Connect configuration for developers. So, before we get started, I just wanted to go through some housekeeping rules with you. The webinar is being recorded and it will be available on YouTube in about a week's time. Currently, all attendees are muted by default. If you do have a question throughout the meeting, please use the question feature within Zoom. We'll open the Q&A at the end of the presentation and we'll try to answer your questions at the end of the session if time permits. Before I hand it over to Nicola, I want to share a quick video with you that highlights our Zebra developer portal.
Learn, connect, build, all in one place. The Zebra Developer Portal. As an enterprise software developer, you need fast and easy access to technical information, documentation, and tutorials. You also want to connect with your peers, share and consume information to build your knowledge and competencies. The updated Zebra Developer Portal has you covered. Product pages give you quick access to product overviews, tutorials, documentation, use cases, forums, and blogs about specific products, all indexed with quick links to key developer information to help you build. Forums within the Zebra developer community make it easy to connect with your peers and find answers to your specific development questions to help you collaborate and build. Community blogs feature content from Zebra engineers and other developer experts, all sharing the latest technologies and tools to enable your development on enterprise devices. Developer events provide knowledge and networking opportunities for our developer community. Be sure to scroll through the upcoming and past events for registration information and access to on-demand content. The Zebra Developer Portal provides enterprise developers like you with the tools and services you need to build your edge. With an easy-to-use interface, you will be sure to find the resources and connections you need to build all your enterprise applications. Devices built by us, apps built by you.
Thank you, Nicola. I hope the video helped you learn some key tools and resources and things that you can access on our developer portal. So in addition to our developer portal, we invite you to join our developer community. You can join us on LinkedIn, Twitter, which is now known as X, GitHub, and listen to our first series of developer podcasts as well. We will share those links later today in the chat, so be sure to follow them and connect with us. Now I hand it over to Nicola.
Thank you, Priyanka, and good day, everyone. So let me start my camera. And as I said, we are here today to cover this topic about Workstation Connect and specifically the configuration for developers. Let me go straight to the agenda. The first point is about introducing Workstation Connect and introduce the available API sets. We'll see the large screens API and specifically the Workstation Connect configuration APIs with a deep dive into their categories, how to deploy these APIs, and a walk through the GitHub repository that is hosting the sample code that I'm sharing with you for your convenience. There's also another way to deploy configuration to Workstation Connect, and we'll see it after that. Finally, the documentation that we host on our Zebra Tech Talks website, and just a few words on the roadmap, a final recap, and in the end, a quick Q&A session. By the way, my name is Nicola De Zolta. I'm a software engineer at Zebra Engineering in the mobile computing unit, and I'm looking after the developer experience on mobile computers. So what is Workstation Connect? Workstation Connect is a solution that is a combination of a specific hardware and software, specifically designed to extend the traditional mobile computers use cases to include the larger screen and in particular external displays, so that the productivity must be increased as well as efficiency, and in the end our customers are able to get more value from their Zebra mobile devices because they can be used in different scenarios. You can learn more about the solution visiting the link I'm showing here in the slides, or pointing your mobile phone to the QR code on the right-hand side. I want just to show you how the information looks like in the Zebra website. This is a website about Workstation Connect, explaining in depth how it works and providing you with direct links to fact sheets, solution brief, support, flyers, and so on. So let's move on and get closer to the topic of this presentation, which is around the APIs. As I said, there are a couple of sets involved when working with Workstation Connect. The first one is the Android large screen APIs, which address how applications get ready to be displayed on external displays, and how these applications are optimized when running on an external display. I have covered this topic in depth during my presentation at DevCon last year in Madrid, and for your convenience, I've attached here a link, and it's the center QR code that I'm highlighting now. That brings you both the slides and the video of that speech. The other set of APIs is the Workstation Connect itself, providing 24 main APIs plus other 34 nested APIs, purely for its configuration, which is available through your application on top of other ways that are typically used by administrators. So about just a quick review of the Android large screens APIs. They are essential enabler for Workstation Connect because when you want to work with an external display, the first two things is enabling the desktop mode for the secondary display and the freeform windows. The desktop modes makes Windows work like any other desktop operating system, and the freeform windows make the minimize, maximize, and close button appear on each window that is displayed on the screen. For this configuration, you can leverage Stage Now, for instance, which is offering special settings to enable the secondary display mode. But the Android large screen are also providing guidelines to developers in order to upgrade your application, because if your application was designed just to run on the internal display, probably you need to get your application ready for the larger screens. You have to deal with window metrics, so understanding the screen size, which is the top activity, and other window connected facts. Also, the display manager class might be useful in your application because it detecting when multiple screens are available, and so your business logic can start leveraging the secondary display when available. Also, the activities life cycle is different in multi-window mode, so you need to learn and understand how to manage all the windows that are rendered at the same time on the screen. And finally, if your application is moving an activity from the internal display to the secondary one or vice versa, you also need to save the state because the activity lifecycle requires it to restart. And so if you want that your media go on playback without any interruption, or your filled-in forms do not get empty, you have to take a special measure on that. And finally, your application can be optimized for external and secondary displays by creating a responsive UI. That means if you look at the picture on the right-hand side of this slide, you should address at least 3 different aspect ratios in your UIs. So the compact one when running the internal display, a medium layout when running, for instance, on tablets, and an expanded view when running on a secondary external screen where the space available is much more. Optimizing an application doesn't only mean addressing the screen size but also adding, for instance, accessibility controls, and also managing special devices connected to the device, for instance, keyboards, mice, and so on. And just to be clear, with Workstation Connect is offering a number of USB sockets, so you can connect the mouse, the keyboard, and any other device that fits that socket. So let's move to the Workstation Connect Configuration API setup. The first thing to check is the basic requirements. With the Workstation Connect version 2.x, which is available as of today, you have one important dependency, Android 11. And so you have to stick to that OS version to run Workstation Connect safely, and also observe a minimum lifeguard update version, which is reported in the second column here with name supported OS. These numbers in the column supported OS are the BSP number that you can look up and download on our support website. You can also see that in the device models column, some models numbers have stars, for instance, the TC20 series and also the ET40 tablets series. These are professional series devices, and they require an additional Mobility DNA enterprise license to run Workstation Connect. For the rest, you need to download from our website an APK, which name starts with the ZWC underscore the version number, and install it on the device. This is providing an additional launcher, which is displayed on the external monitor. As I said in the beginning, during the agenda, there are 24 categories of APIs available. A set of these are mostly of the type on-off type of a feature, like displaying or hiding a shortcut, a wallpaper, a panel at all, and so on. But there's also a number of categories which is slightly more complex and allow a finer tuning of the elements displayed on the UI. For instance, you can configure the status icons in details, the desktop shortcuts, and also, for instance, the taskbar. The items that I circled here in these slides have a specific analysis in the next slides. I also want to remind you that we allow the user to reset the configuration to an out-of-box configuration, that this might be enabled by the developer in order to be used by the operator. You can also choose to apply immediately a configuration that is sent to the Workstation Connect, or wait until the device is undocked and docked again. Here an example of how, for instance, a taskbar API is applied and how it's rendered. I'm showing now on the left half of the screen the original launcher on the external monitor. You see in the bottom left side that button with several dots. It's a all apps button, and also in the central part of the of this tool taskbar, you can see two small sets of icons. The ones on the left are icons of application running on the secondary screen, while the sets on the right are application running on the mobile device display. Once I applied the configuration, which is shown on the JSON file on the right, I told the Workstation Connect to hide, or better disable, the all apps buttons, and also not to display the mobile application, just those running on the external display. And so you can see the all mobile button is inaccessible, it's grayed out, and only the applications running on the screen are shown. Similarly, if I want to work on the status icon, which are found on the bottom right side of the screen, for instance, showing the status of the volume, Wi-Fi connection, the strength of the WAN connection, the battery level of the device, and so on. These can be adjusted. And for instance, the configuration sent here, the value string number 2 hides or disables specific features. The SIP icon disappeared. The WAN connection and the Wi-Fi were also not shown. And the battery status icon is also hidden. So this is the level of granularity that you can reach with this more complex API. Last example, really interesting, is managing the desktop shortcuts. Focus on the left side, the 4 icons starting with the Chrome, Settings, Play Store, and Files are the original links that comes out of box with the factory default configuration. Sending a configuration that resets and defines new shortcuts, you have a completely new set of icons. And on top of that, I decided to show, with the value number 1, the reset configuration menu, which is available on the All Apps button with a right click. This way, the operator can reset to the out-of-box status and practically get back to the screen, which is shown on the left. So let's now see how the configuration APIs are coded, starting from the documentation. We are going to publish a developer's user's guide, and this is an example for the desktop orientation API. For instance, has a key, and this is the name that will be referenced in the configuration, and the number of values, which are a choice of number 0 to 3. And when we want to use and make a configuration related to the desktop orientation, we have to include a new key value pair, specifically with the key, which holds the API name and the value that we chose to send. For instance, 0, which means a landscape, no rotation, aspect ratio. This is part of a larger JSON file that will be sent to Workstation Connect for the final configuration. Once that the Workstation Connect, once that the JSON file is ready, you need to deploy it. And the first way to do that is using a ZVA, so a Zebra Value Added feature that allows your application to bind a service, which is pre-built in the operating system. And so, for instance, on a click on a button, you can call a specific method passing the content of the JSON file. And this is reality doing two things, two actions. The first one is loading from a file the configuration. I'll show you more now with the code and in Android Studio, and then binding and calling the process ZVA request with the data just loaded. We'll see in a moment how this interface is done. To bind the ZVA interface, your code needs to use an AIDL, the Android Interface Definition Language, which is part of the package com.zebra.value_add, and its signature is the iZVA service. In Android Studio, which I can show you here, the AIDL file is part of the solution. As you can see, the package name is the one that I've just shown. And when I double click, this is just the content of the file, and it will be referenced in the code during when you want to send the configuration to the hardware. In order to allow your application to call this ZVA and binding service, you also need to get the permission. And specifically, this is achieved, for instance, through StageNow. StageNow has a feature set called the Access Manager, and the action service allow caller to call service needs to be invoked. As a service identifier, you need just to paste this literal, because this is identifying the specific ZVA needed to configure Workstation Connect. In the core package name, you need to enter your application ID, which is commonly called package name, but let me show this on Android Studio. To see your application ID, you need to pick the build Gradle file relative to your module, and see this field, the application ID in the default configuration. The string here is the one that you want to enter as a caller package name value. Finally, you also need to add the caller signature, so your application public signature, which is available in several ways. We have made available in our techdocs.zebra.com's website at the address that I'm showing here, a specific tool that is called SIG tool. It's a command line tool that requires Java, and I can show the syntax of the command needed to extract the public interface from the public certificate from any APK. You need to call it, it's a jar, so you call it with the Java syntax, with the specific and fixed input and output format. You want to generate a DER certificate for StageNow. You specify your APK name, which of course might be different than this one that I'm showing, and you want to specify also a file output, which will be the certificate in the specified format. Usually the CRT extension is used for this kind of certificates. And then you you can upload this certificate in StageNow. I can also show you how StageNow appears lively. So this is the access manager. I have just this feature enabled. As you can see here, I chose the allow caller to call service. And in the service identifier, this is the string entered, the package name, and the CRT file was loaded from my file system into the specific access manager configuration. Once done, this is creating a specific is creating a barcode for staging. For instance, you choose this one and you can create a StageNow configuration and shoot these barcodes with your device and get the configuration transmitted to, and your application this way gets access to the ZBA here. I also published a sample code, a sample application on GitHub under the Zebra Devs organization, and which is part of the code that I've just shown here within Android Studio. The sample code is organized this way. We have the folder including the AIDL, as I've shown before. Another important folder is the asset one. I'll show you because the asset folder is the central one in this slide, and it's including several JSON files with pre-configured examples that you can easily apply to your case. And then we have the Java folders with the actual activities involved in the configuration and running your application. If we prefer to see this live on the screen, so this is the asset folder in my application. These are all settings that can be differently applied. For instance, the display settings is a JSON file of this kind, applying, for instance, a different desktop density and the rotation, as shown in the beginning, while the Java folders is holding the code which you can easily understand. For instance, is sending the configuration in both ways that I'm showing here. So using the ZVA, bind ZVA service, and sending the configuration in that way. It's also loading the configuration from the asset folder and so on, and applying. I also share that there's another way to deploy the configuration, and it's through our SSM, the Secure Storage Manager. The Secure Storage Manager was covered in the past. You can see on our developers' website specific videos and coverage on that. Anyway, it's a file provider which is built in our operating system, and it's very easy to use it. You created the desired configuration as a JSON, as we have seen so far, for instance, loading from the file or creating it at runtime. You save it to a local file folder, accessible to your application, and then you need to define a target URI. So that's a kind of address inside SSM, which starts with the Workstation Connect ID, application ID, which is com.zebra.workstationconnect.release, followed by this fixed path that must not be changed, which is a /enterprise, our public folders, / Workstation Connect config with the _.txt. So your JSON configuration will be moved to this file and automatically applied to Workstation Connect. The QR code here is bringing directly to the GitHub where this is applied, and I'm showing here. Send configuration via SSM is, for instance, using a temporary file in the download folder, which is usable even in the latest operating system versions. You can see here that I'm using the target path that I've just shown in the slides, and the three sub-actions: load from asset, save to local file, and finally feed file to SSM. And in order to send a file to the file content, you just use a standard Android API. You have to create a bundle of values that specify the type of data that you're going to send the content, the file content provider, and you call it the insert API, and the application gets transferred. For your convenience, the sample application is offering several small use cases. For instance, the first one is a button setting displays resolution, density, and orientation. But you can also deal with the notification panel, taskbar, as I shown before. The status bar is another example that I've already covered. And interesting API is that around application behavior. For instance, you can decide what is the application behavior on the docking and undocking events, which application should auto-run when the device is docked, and so on. The taskbar, we have seen all the buttons available in taskbar and how you can show or hide each of them. The device behaviors is about applying settings immediately, as I said, or after an undock and redock, and about also dimming the screen brightness if needed. The desktop shortcuts is another big feature of Workstation Connect. I'll show you, and we'll see some other example in the next slides. About the dynamic shortcuts, how to work with this feature. First of all, you need to create on a first configuration manually the shortcuts that you want to be shown and set by your application. To do that, create the shortcut on the screen and export them. It's a menu accessible with the right mouse click to a folder which is automatically chosen. It's called the /enterprise/usr/zwc, and it creates a file similar to this with the timestamp, which is different from time to time, of course. Once you have exported this TXT file, which holds kind of a JSON version of the exported shortcuts, you need to create and use the API config desktop shortcuts and the subkey shortcut input file. And despite the name of this sub API suggesting to use a file, you can actually paste the content of the exported shortcuts directly into this value string. The only thing that you need to pay attention is that you're embedding a JSON string into another JSON string, and so you need to escape with backslashes the quotes characters. There's another thing about the exported shortcuts. There's a checksum node which is always exported. The checksum is optional, so if your intention is to change the content of this set of data of shortcuts, be mindful you should remove the checksum, otherwise it will fail when entered. And with that said, with that said, we can have a look at where the documentation is hosted. The first place you want to visit is our tech docs at the address I'm showing here. As I said, a developer's user guide will soon be published, so stay tuned if you're interested in learning the exact syntax of all the APIs that I've introduced here today. There's also a couple of APIs available for the roadmap. The Workstation Connect version 3 will be made available next month, so in March 2024. And the good news is that it will support Android 13. So if you want to use it with the latest flavor of Android, you have to wait a few weeks yet. I think I covered everything that was on the agenda. So let's wrap up a bit what we have seen today. We have reviewed Android guidelines about upgrading your application for large screen. So, we have defined what is Workstation Connect and its scope of work, and walking through its API sets and learning how to code documented the API and translate it into JSON setting. On top of that, we have learned how to deploy this configuration, and we have seen there are two ways to do that, the ZBA and the SSM. Finally, we walk through the GitHub repository for hosting the sample app. I invite you to take a look at that repository, clone it, and play a bit with it. You should gain all the building blocks needed to create your specific line of business application with working with Workstation Connect. And finally, we have focused on the dynamic desktop shortcut creation. With that, we are really at the very end of this presentation. The line is back to Priyanka. Priyanka, do we have any questions from our audience?
Thank you for the great presentation, Nicola. We do have some questions that came in over in the Q&A session, so I'm going to jump in.
Okay.
Anybody else has any question, please use the Q&A feature within Zoom, and we will try and address the questions during the call here today. So first question we got here is, do we have a Flutter package too?
See, thank you for the question. No, at the moment we don't have a Flutter package. But if you're really interested in that, I can take a look and see how to deal with Flutter. In the end, you have seen that there's nothing strictly connected to Java if you use and to a native application. If you use the content provider, the file provider, and delivering the application, the configuration through SSM. So we can try and eventually come back and publish a solution based with Flutter. Yeah.
Thank you. We have another question came in. Can you confirm if a developer needs to use both Android's and Zebra's API to work with WSC?
Oh, sure. Good question. The answer is the Android APIs are needed to enable, as I said, enable. Then specifically, if you want to enrich your application, make it screen aware of the external display, yes, you need to use the Android APIs for the larger screen, and of course you need to use specific Zebra Connect APIs to set all and to play with all the features offered. Yes, so the answer is yes.
That was really insightful. Thank you. We got another question. What happens with big display if the display on mobile device gets locked with keyboard and optionally requires PIN for unlock?
Oh, good question. I forgot to take the screenshot of this case. Um, you see display lot, and with by means of the mouse you can click on it, and a keyboard, a soft input keyboard will appear on the screen, and you are able to enter the pin by clicking on the screen.
Great. We have another question here. Is Workstation Connect development also going to be supported via MAUI, the next generation Xamarin?
Um, so the answer is similar to that about Flutter. So it's just a question of dealing with, for instance, the file contents, file providers, which are standard Android. So I don't see a specific issue in doing that. It will be part of the Android specific platform of MAUI. And we can hopefully generate some sample code about that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for answering that. Next question is, are there any additional steps to take to grant all the needed permissions to have app operating on WSC? And why is it so cumbersome?
It, yeah, it's I know it appears slightly cumbersome. In reality, we call it security precautions. In the end, we prefer that if a developer is deploying an application that goes straight to the core of our operating system, binding system service, it is authorized by an administrator who owns the responsibility of running an application on the customer's device. So in the end, um, um, yes, you always have to authorize your application in order to bind these services. And a way to do that is using StageNow, as I've shown here. There are also other ways to do it. For instance, using the OEM config and passing the same type of information, or even programmatically. So it takes some lines of additional lines of code or an additional step, but it ensures that the administrator is aware of what's going on in an application. That's the reason why it's happening.
Great. Thank you for answering that. It looks like that's all the questions we had. And with that, our session wraps up for today. Thank you, Nicola. We really appreciate all your insights. Please keep an eye out for a quick survey. It will pop up as soon as the webinar ends. And if you can, please just take a minute or two and let us know your thoughts. We value your feedback and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Everyone.